Portugal and the beauty of Azores Islands.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Ravens Roundtable. I am your host, Mary Ann Lambert, with the STEM Academy's Film at STEM. We're delighted to have you tonight and look forward to sharing everything that the STEAM teachers at the STEM Academy know about STEAM education, applying to Savannah Arts, and preparing for an arts program in high school. So before we get too far along, let me hand it over to our panel tonight and allow them to introduce themselves. Ms. Glass?
Hi, my name is Hannah Glass, and I'm the theater arts teacher at the STEM Academy. I'm so excited to do this. Yay, Savannah Arts Prep.
Mr. Graham?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Graham. I teach band, and yeah, I'm excited to get this going too.
And I believe the next is Ms. Woodard-Thompson.
Hi, I'm Ms. Woodard-Thompson. I teach chorus. So any chorus questions?
And Ms. Young.
Hey, I'm Miss Young, and of course I'm here with art. So I'm excited to address the concerns and questions that you guys have revolving around the art process.
And I want to thank, these are my colleagues and friends as well, my fellow nerds, as you may know as well. And so this is a Ravens Roundtable that I am quite ecstatic about because we are the ones that put the A in STEAM. For those of you that do not know, the STEM Academy was the first STEM certified middle school in the state of Georgia and the second STEAM certified middle school in the state of Georgia. And it is something that we are very proud of. And being STEAM certified is something that we worked extremely hard to become. I see Ms. Glass nodding her head right now. There was a lot of tiresome days and nights, and I just remember them blurring together at one point. If I may for a second, Ms. Glass, Mr. Graham, I know you are all part of that becoming STEAM certified. Ms. Woodard-Thompson, could you share a little bit about what that STEAM certification looked like? I know we have some parents that are joining us that are hoping to join the STEM Academy as new parents, perhaps for next year. And so what is being STEAM certified? What does that A in STEM, what does it mean that we have art at a science and technology school mean?
So I guess I'll just go ahead and jump in first. So for me in particular, science and art are the same thing. I'm sure that Ms. Woodard-Thompson and Mr. Graham would agree that music is math. And for me, for example, lighting is a science. Everything that we do is so interconnected that it just made sense for us to be a STEAM school. Literally anything that you can find in one disciplinary area, we find a way to connect to. And a lot of the time when we can, we even combine classes and share things between us. And we're always sharing resources and bouncing plans off of each other. And being STEAM certified and being STEAM teachers allows us to look at not just how does this affect me, but how does this affect the world big picture?
Yeah, that's great. Science is huge in band, and I would say in chorus as well. We talk about vibrations a lot, sound waves, big time. We talk about breathing, and and like Ms. Glass said, math. Obviously, I mean you are constantly dividing and adding, and anytime you're reading music, you're really doing all of those disciplines at once, which is why reading music is so cool.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what Mr. Graham said, we definitely do all of those things in music. In chorus, you know, we talk, in addition to talking about sound waves and acoustics, we also talk about the anatomy of the vocal tract. So what's a larynx? What's a soft palate? Just, you know, identifying and figuring out the function of the human voice and how that's all interconnected.
I know we do so much of that in film as well, looking at light waves and sound waves and understanding the, you know, we look at how film, that happy accident that we came not so long ago, and now we are looking at completely changing the world of green screen once again. And students are looking at combining coding and green screen and all of that. And we're doing Foley sound every day. Miss Young, I found a quote and I wrote it down and I'll keep it in my desk drawer, but I pulled it out today and it made me think of you. And it said, both art and science are both human attempts to describe the world around us. And in case anyone was thinking about me being a bad teacher tonight, that is from Dave Featherington, and that's from Forbes as well. So thank you, Ms. Class. But that made me think about you, Ms. Young, with your class so often. I know you are our newest STEM teacher. What are some of the ways that you're combining art and science in your classroom?
So in my classroom, art and science, I'm actually going to wind up partnering with one of the teachers on my hallway. Once students hopefully come back, we're going to look at different types of photography, like pinhole cameras and cyanotyping, things like that, and how the lighting process can really impact that, as well as looking at silver and non-silver photography types. So it's really exciting to be able to explore things like that in the classroom. And in addition to that, my students right now who are prepping for Savannah Arts, they're working on concentration statements, which really follows that scientific experiment process of, you know, writing a question and experimenting and trying to answer that question and looking at your results and reevaluating if something else needs to be done. So there are so many connections.
Speaking of Savannah Arts, that is one of the reasons we are here tonight. And I know that for each of us, for each of our areas, there are specific requirements. Could you each speak about those requirements? And for those parents who have never experienced having a child go to Savannah Arts before, let's break it down. Are these requirements the same every year? Do they change every year? What should they expect? When should they see these requirements post? Let us speak for the brand new newbies, have never heard of this before. I don't know if Mr. Graham's head scratch was intentional or not.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm happy to go first, by the way. So for band, it's very cut and dry. And as far as I know, as long as Mr. Nestor, he is the current band director at Savannah Arts, he's been there for several years. As long as he's been there, it hasn't changed. So basically the students have the answers. They know the answers to the test. And it's all based off of the GMEA requirements for district honor band and all state. So basically for our wind players, that would be anyone who plays woodwind and brass, they're required to perform 2 different scales, which is the concert G and concert G flat. And then they're required to play the technical portion of their 2 etudes from the GMEA website. And if you go to the Savannah Arts page, it's a bunch of information. And what I've done to kind of make it a little bit easier for our students to navigate is I've compiled everything that's required, and I put it basically on 2 pages of sheet music, and it's labeled by instrument. And I've already shared that out with the students several weeks ago. So it really never changes. So they should have already been started working on it. I've been basically bugging them every day. Said, hey, I've been working on this, and I'm available every Wednesday as well to do tutorials. And then as far as there's one more portion that's called the error detection test. It doesn't always happen, but if it is, I think it's administered electronically, and it's essentially, basically, I think he'll post a piece of music with errors in it, and they're supposed to detect the errors, whether it be this measure has too many beats and it's the time signature doesn't work or something like that. But I don't think it's actually been administered in a couple of years. And I believe this year, you guys can correct me, but are the auditions all virtual? So that could change a few things too. So we're kind of waiting to hear. But as far as what needs to be prepared, it hasn't changed, and yeah, it's very cut and dry. So get to work, kiddos.
Yes, if you have not started preparing or practicing, I'm watching for the other teachers' eyes, kind of cross-eyed at this point. If you have not started preparing or practicing now, start tonight. If not, early in the morning. Start now.
Yeah, and I'll add, and I'm sure this is true for every discipline, but it's not something you can cram for the night before. You will fail spectacularly if you attempt to do that. It's very difficult on purpose to see who's going to rise to that challenge, because we want the best of the best there.
If you look in the chat, everyone, I have put the admissions for Savannah Arts website. They have a separate Savannah Arts website guidelines website. I have put that in the chat. It is SAA admissions.weebly, WEEBLY.com. All right, what area is next? Who wants to go next?
I don't mind going next.
All right, Ms. Young.
All right. So basically the way that the visual arts portfolio is set up is it's a lot like an advanced placement studio art class that your student may or may not take in high school to earn college credit. So there's the first portion, which is 40%, and it's composed of 9 student artworks that fit into 3 different categories. The first 3 are observational drawings, 3 are related to 2D design, and then 3 are optional artworks of their own. These can be artworks that they've created from 6th to 8th grade, but a lot of students don't think ahead to save their 6th and 7th grade artworks. So that's something where even when they're younger, go ahead and have them start saving those, because it's going to save them a lot once they get to 8th grade, so that they don't have to panic and get together 9 artworks all of a sudden. So that's the first portion of it. And then the second portion is actually a live drawing where the Savannah Arts teachers set up a still life, and the students have to draw from that still life 45 minutes. And there's a whole rubric of requirements that they're using different types of line, different types of value, creating emphasis. They're working on their composition. So all of these things that I've been trying to get them to focus on in my class anyway, and I incorporate into the curriculum because I did come from teaching high school. So it's natural for me to go, okay, if I were in Savannah Arts position, what would I want my incoming 8th graders to look at and look like? So I'm very fortunate in that manner that I've already had that experience. So I was able to jump right into it and didn't really have to question too much about it. With the auditions going virtual, it's looking like as of right now, I spoke to Ms. Payne earlier today from Savannah Arts, and she said as of right now, it looks like the live drawing will still happen virtually and will still be in that 45-minute time frame.
Now, Ms. Young, can you talk a little bit about portfolios since they are going virtual? How should they present their portfolio? Should they photograph everything? Have they gotten the rules for that yet?
Excellent question. So the students who just started in my semester class this semester, they are currently working on a digital portfolio for me. I already had the students last semester prepare something just in case. The biggest thing is when you're photographing your artworks, you want to make sure you've got good natural lighting. You're not taking super dark photos. You're not taking photos of things at an angle. You want it head on. You want really good lighting to showcase your artwork. Sometimes students can be a little nervous about their artwork and think maybe it's not the best, and they do this weird angle with the camera. It is not doing them any justice at all. Just do it head on and it will showcase it the best. We have, say that again?
You're saying they should apply the rule of thirds.
Exactly. And so we've been working on putting together portfolios where they are looking at all the artworks that they have, figuring out where they want to place it. And then I took it a step further because I don't really know if Savannah Arts is going to ask them questions during the live observation or not. So I have had them for each of those artworks start thinking about elements and principles that they were applying, where they applied it, why they applied it in those artworks, so that they'll be prepared to actually talk to a Savannah Arts representative in the case that they ask them questions. So all of this, they've already started, they're working on putting together. They'll be receiving an email soon, especially those for this semester just joining me, for an optional portfolio review one-on-one with me. They don't have to do it, but I would highly recommend it. And then also on Wednesdays from 9 to 11, they can log on using our class link, or they can email me if they're a student that's not in my class currently. And we're focusing really, really hard on the observational drawing, since that's going to be 60% of their portfolio grade, essentially.
And I will ask this question for years past, because you never know when office supplies are going to be on sale.
Right.
And one thing I do remember is oftentimes 8th graders running in at the last minute and going, I have a portfolio, and it being a falling apart 8.5 by 11, we will kindly call it a folder or a composition notebook, or explain what a actual portfolio for this type of audition or presentation at this level, what should a student have?
So in terms of just like, let's start on the physical appearance of the portfolio. You don't want anything that's falling apart. You don't have to do anything crazy. Like I think I got this for like $10 at Blick. It's got like a little handle. Sorry, it's got dog hair on it. But just to transport things so that things don't get damaged, because if you show up with damaged artwork, crumpled artwork, anything like that, they're not going to take too kindly to it. And then they also require that you don't go any smaller than 8.5 by 11, but no larger than 18 by 24, I believe is what it is. So you're trying to fit within those size guidelines. And a portfolio itself should showcase all of your abilities. So you don't want to take just a sketchbook where you're like, here it is, and it's just a bunch of random things drawn here and there and thrown on the page. You want to pick the best of the best artwork that you have created. This is what you want to go into that, and really taking your time to curate, you know, and think about, why is this my favorite? Why does this seem to be my best? And if you've got pieces that are a little, they're okay, but they don't fit specifically in it, that's when you want to go ahead and say, okay, let me maybe do another observational drawing, and I'll practice that 45-minute observational drawing, and let's see if I can create something worth putting in my portfolio.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Woodard-Thompson.
So the chorus audition is mostly the same every year. There are, within the like larger framework of what they want you to do, they change little details of it. This year, the solo is, there's a solo you have to learn, memorized, of course. It's Loveliest of Trees by John Duke. The solo is like 38 points of your audition score. So it's the biggest part. So you have to really, if you've not started practicing your solo, you should probably do that.
That was so subtle.
Yeah. Sight singing, there's always two examples. There will be one in major and one in a minor key. That's the second biggest portion of your score. That's 32 points between those two exercises. And they always do it at the same level, the same requirements of the 9th and 10th grade All-State Audition sight reading. So you can go onto the GMEA website and look at the past examples for those to get an idea of what they're looking for. There's also scales. You have to sing major, minor, and chromatic scales, ascending and descending. There is a very short, like 5-question music theory test about terms and symbols that you might see in music. And there's also the last portion is the tonal memory. So they will play 5 random notes that are related to each other or not, and you have to sing that back to them. So that's pretty much what the audition looks like for vocal performance. The only thing that really changes from year to year is which solo you're doing. And this year they actually posted it a lot earlier than normal. They usually wait till January, but this year they posted it in November, so it was very exciting. So
lots of time to practice. Now, I know that we did find out that the auditions will be virtual. I am not a singer. Some of you know this well. Is there anything that your students need to take into consideration as they are doing this virtually? Should they keep in mind lighting or where their computers are positioned or the acoustics of the room or anything to give them that edge?
Yeah, definitely think about the acoustics of the room. I know, like, I make recordings for my classes and I do it in my classroom, and there's always this echo because there's so many hard surfaces. So kind of experiment with different locations, whether you need a room with carpeting or more resonance or whatever. Kind of experiment with different locations and see what sounds the best. Also, it's really easy when you're sitting on your computer. I've noticed with my students, it's really easy to get really slouchy. So make sure that when you're doing your audition virtually, still stand up and sing, because we know that we sing so much better when we're standing. We have so much more room to breathe. So just, you know, don't let yourself sit down for your audition, even though you're really going to want to.
Wonderful. That's some great advice. And Mr. Graham, I forgot to ask you the same thing. Is there anything that your students need to take into consideration about the room they're in or the acoustics or anything as well? I know that you have been doing virtual teaching. We all have for so long that our students have a lot of this down at this point, but is there any quick reminders that they need?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Obviously, we've received no guidelines from Savannah Arts as far as what they want, but try and have your instrument in view so they can see, you know, the keys that you're pressing down if that applies to you. If you play a directional instrument, so something with a bell, don't point it directly at the microphone because it'll cause it to clip, and clipping is where the audio is just the microphone is overloaded from too much audio. And no matter, you could be the most amazing musician in the world, it will sound awful because it's happened a few times, and it's just the nature of how it works. So I would recommend pointing at a different direction if you have a directional instrument like a trumpet or a trombone or something like that. Just point off to the side, and it makes a huge difference. Most of my students should have already done this, but definitely record yourself and listen back to it before you turn any official audition in, just to see, be sure you're in the frame, and we can go crazy and do rule of thirds too, Mr. Lambert, if you want. You can have them stand off to the side. You don't have to do that, but just be sure that you know the audio is not clipping. That's the major thing, because you could preparing for months and months, and then your audio sounds bad and it sounds like you weren't prepared, or you're just playing everything incredibly loud. But in reality, it's just you're too close to the microphone or the camera, whatever you have. So just do a practice run. That's the biggest thing until we get some more guidelines.
And on behalf of your film teacher, please check your lighting. Make sure that the lighting is not reflecting off your instrument and blinding everyone watching it or hiding your face. Something that we've always told band students for years and years is that if you're like Miss Lambert and when you're trying to look formal, you wear your hair down, still pull it back if you're going to be playing an instrument so that they can see your face and remember who you are. That is something you want, that impression, and it's just a little key from the PR lady. Because y'all are awesome and we wanted them to know who you are. Okay, Miss Glass, let's go to theater.
Okay, so for theater arts, this is my 4th year at STEM, so this is my 4th year prepping for Savannah Arts. Last year, the requirements changed, where now what is expected is 2 monologues in 90 seconds. One of them has to be a Shakespearean monologue and the other has to be a contemporary monologue. So anything written basically after the year 1900. The more modern you go, probably the better, but that doesn't outrule some of the classics, Tennessee Williams, plays of that era also, which are fantastic for our kiddos, our age of kiddos. The most important thing, though, is your ability to walk into the room and own it. You will get points for how you enter the room, or in this case, start your recording or live Zoom call. We're still not really sure how that's going to work. But the moment that you start, yes, absolutely. The moment that you begin, you have to command your own space. So you'll have to do what's called a slate. So your slate is when you introduce yourself and the pieces you're going to be performing and who they are by. If you don't mention the author, you will lose points. Then you go into your 2 monologues. You have 90 seconds for the 2 monologues. So I recommend splitting them 45 and 45. Or if you have a longer piece you really, really enjoy and you really just nail it, then you're just going to have to pick a shorter piece on the other side. But you get 90 seconds and that's it. After your 90 seconds, you'll end your audition with a simple thank you. It's what we do in the theatrical profession. Anytime we audition, we end with thank you to thank the people for their time. Then you will get what's called a redirect. So a redirect is when someone from Savannah Arts will say, thank you, that was lovely. Now do your contemporary monologue like you're a child opening up Christmas presents and you can't find the one you really want. Or it'll be something like, you were standing the whole time, now do your monologue sitting down. Or it could be, you've just lied and your pants are physically on fire, do your monologue. It can be anything just very simple, like sit up straighter this time, or it can be completely off the walls bonkers. You just got to be prepared for that. So you get points for your slate, your contemporary, your Shakespeare, your thank you. You get 5 points for that, and then your redirect. And they're looking for your ability to improvise and overcome that thing that just gets thrown at you because you've been preparing this piece or pieces, hopefully, for months. So they throw that redirect at you that I can help you in tutorial sessions, just throw different random things at you, but you're not going to know what your redirect is until that moment. So they're testing your improv skills, your research skills, your prep skills. The other thing that is required is a, what is the English word for that? The letter, the
Resume.
cover letter, thank you. I couldn't remember. So the cover letter is not like a traditional employment cover letter, but it is. So you're introducing yourself and why you want a spot in the freshman class, what you can bring to the school, what your work history in theater is, any awards you've ever won, and then basically just why is Savannah Arts going to make you a better performer, and why can you be the best performer at Savannah Arts. The other things that are recommended but are not necessary are a headshot and a resume. If you have more than about 3 shows under your belt, I would highly recommend a resume. If you're fewer than that, you really don't need one because you can explain it in your cover letter.
And Ms. Glass, with that resume, cover letter, proper grammar, proper spelling, probably use Grammarly, Hemingway editor, something like that to ensure that we are following absolutely perfect English. Get multiple adults to proofread it, probably bribe our English teachers to look over it, have you look over it. Do not wait until the day of, correct?
Absolutely not. And you'll need 4 different copies of that cover letter because there are going to be 3 judges and then an extra copy of it necessary. So that needs to be pristine. Of course, we don't know what the cover letter situation is going to look like Now that things are virtual, you may have to just submit one to a Dropbox. You may have to physically show it on camera. We aren't sure yet, but being prepared for anything is going to be your best bet going into the theatrical audition.
And I know you were talking about the improv and the redirect. One thing that you and I have talked about, for those of you that don't know, Miss Glass and I are E-Hall neighbors. So we live across the hall from each other at school. One thing she and I often talk about with that redirect is that if you do not know your monologue to begin with, you're never able to accomplish the redirect. Did I get that right, Ms. Glass?
You are absolutely correct. You should be practicing your monologue when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, when you are with your parents, if you have to accompany them to the grocery store, if you have to sit in the car and do it, if you need to, you should be performing your monologue at least for yourself, probably once or twice a day until you absolutely know it. And then you come to me and we start adding character choices and blocking and movement and things like that. Because if you just say it, that's very different from performing it. It's the same thing with music. If there's no feeling, or if there's no feeling when you're drawing, whatever, it's just a recitation versus a performance.
That's what I was going to ask, the emotion behind it, the understanding. I know that some of these are very old, and the language may not be something that you would find on Snapchat or TikTok these days. However, the students need to actually understand what they are saying and find a connection to it, correct?
In particular, the Shakespeare monologues.
Okay.
If you are a student who's looking at Savannah Arts for next year or even further into the future, I would highly recommend SparkNotes makes these books called No Fear Shakespeare, where it's the Shakespearean text on one side and the modern day English translation on the other. So you can literally look at the monologue on two sides and go, oh, that line means this, so that you can build that physical connection and that emotional connection as well.
Now, for all the moms and dads who are Googling right now, is that available on Amazon?
Yes, you can buy them at Borders. You can buy them on Amazon. A lot of Shakespeare, because it's in the public domain, is actually online for free. The translations, though, are a little bit harder to come by for free, but Amazon most definitely has them.
Wonderful. You heard it here first, guys. It is on Amazon. Hopefully Amazon Prime for all of you Prime members.
Oh, yeah.
And just so that I can cover film as well, I am the film at STEM teacher at the STEM Academy, and so hopefully many of you tuning in are also applying for the film studies program at Savannah Arts. There are 5 themes that are available for your film to be. It is turning lemons into lemonade, practice makes perfect, in someone else's shoes, man versus nature, or carpe diem, seize the day. Your film must be tied to one of those themes. Your film must be a narrative film. It must tell a story, have a beginning, a middle, and end with a conflict. It can be no longer than 3 minutes. It must have music, titles, credits, narration. Trying to make sure I have everything covered. Do not use Google Slides, PowerPoint, Adobe Spark. See if I remember anything else I've been asked. That is not film editing. You need to use iMovie. I'm thinking of what's on your iPads. iMovie is what I would use if you were using your iPads. Anything beyond that, what you have access to on your computers, what you have access to at home, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about editing beyond that. We do have Avid, we have Camtasia in the labs at school. I would love to do that with you. We have Premiere Pro. So we can definitely nerd out on that. You have to not only do the short film, which is 60 points, and let me reiterate, no copyright violations and no plagiarism, but you also have to do extemporaneous speech based on your film production. It is going to relate to, it's going to be some question they give you about your film. So I highly recommend that you keep notes during the filmmaking process. Pre-production, production, post-production. What was your scripting process, your storyboarding process? What was the production like? What did you use for audio? What did you use for lighting? What did you use for editing? What problems did you come across with casting, especially during this time, during the pandemic? What were the highs? What were the lows? Use all of that. Have those notes in your head. Go over and over and over them again. Have your parents quiz you about different issues with your film. There are some notes on the website about possible questions. And I would love to also help you with this. When organizing a extemporaneous speech, it is much like organizing a 5-paragraph essay. Intro, 3 body paragraphs, conclusion. It is very, very simple. But you do need to have your thoughts in order. Any questions, guys? And like Ms. Glass said, you have to own it. If you have not started working on your film, start now. Ms. Young.
Sorry, I just wanted to throw out there real quick. When you said something that they should not do, it reminded me that for their art portfolio, Savannah Arts was very explicit and upfront with nothing for the art portfolio should be on notebook paper. Nothing should include cartoons or anime, and nothing should include celebrity images at all. Basically, if they were to see one of those, it essentially would be like it wouldn't even count in the portfolio, which would stink because then that would just be points off.
And I will say that for my kiddos, there's a very specific format of saving your films, of how you must save them: last name _ first name _ title of film, and it has to be saved as an MP4 file extension. Nothing else. Nothing else. MP4 file extension. And there is a very specific way to upload it to Google Drive, how to share it. You must follow those directions. And those films are due February 17th. If you're submitting a film for Savannah Arts, it is due February 17th. And I have more information, a little more information and everything linked on our Film at STEM website, filmatstem.weebly.com, just to help everyone if you are doing film studies. All right, I know we have focused a lot on 8th graders and the submission process tonight, but I do want to get a little advice for 6th and 7th graders and their parents who are just now thinking about, hey, maybe I would like to go to Savannah Arts. What is some advice that you would give these students and parents as they are possibly thinking about going to Savannah Arts or pursuing an arts education in high school?
Practice your instrument every day. Practice your scales.
Definitely.
For band, the scales never change. So you can go ahead and work on those now, even as a 6th grader.
I would say audition for as much as you can, because as I've been telling my kids, like when you're auditioning, you're probably nervous and you need to figure out, what is my body going to do when I'm nervous and how am I going to adjust for that in the audition process. So the more comfortable you are auditioning, the better off you'll be.
Love that advice.
For me, it would be save your artwork, whether you think it's good or not. Save your artwork, because you have no idea the things that you can put into your portfolio or several pieces that you can easily combine to create a brand new piece that would actually work. So holding on to all of that and then practicing drawing from observation what's in front of you. That is the biggest thing. I've already started that with my 6th graders, and we're going to hound that pretty hard all the way up until 8th grade. So those are my 2 main things.
And Ms. Young, I would add to that, don't just save it, but make notes about what you use and the medium, and because every student seems to forget that and they wish that they knew.
Yeah, and why you created it. Not just because your teacher told you to create it, but, was there a particular artist that you were referencing? Was there a particular mood that you were going for? And then I would even suggest, because things happen. Sometimes you move, sometimes something spills. I would suggest not just having your artwork in a folder, but already having decent digital photos of it saved on a Google Drive, so that in the event of something happening, you've got a backup. You've got something else that you can show for it.
I would even share that one Google Drive folder with mom or dad.
Yes.
Pick the responsible parent. Know which parent is the more responsible parent. Share that folder with them so they can keep up with it for high school. Ms. Glass?
So for theater, the first thing that I would say is start giving your kids plays. Let them read them like books. Let them get lost in them. Read plays. Plays are so much fun to read. They're way more fun to perform, audition for things, because we do a minimum of 2 shows a year. This year, we're doing 3. But the other thing that I would say is you have got to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice. One of the things that's very special and particular about this particular time in our lives is that everything is recorded. So if you are uneased by the sound of your own voice, it makes you hypercritical of your own work, and you got to get used to the way that you sound. Knowing what you sound like and how to manipulate your voice to create new characters is a huge advantage to you, not just going into Savannah Arts, but if you like to perform, to go into that into the future. Being confident and knowing who you want to be. And I know that's hard in middle school. It's so hard because we're getting pulled in all these different directions. But having an insight as to this is who I am and this is who I want to be will help you drive yourself forward in a theatrical career. And that's kind of how we have to think about SAA is this is kind of what I'm going to do with my life for the next 4 years. So this is, this is my goal and this is what I want. So those are my little snippets of advice.
I would also say, I love that advice. I would also say to be mindful of your grades, guys. I know that our whole team, we often sit in on parent conferences for 7th graders, and one of our questions is like, don't you want to go to Savannah Arts? We want you to go to Savannah Arts, or we want you to go to a choice high school. You deserve to go to this program. And the student's like, well, yeah, I want to go, but that's in 8th grade. I'll make that decision. But what so many 7th graders don't realize is their 7th grade grades are what factors into going to those choice high schools. It's both semesters of 7th grade and then that first semester of 8th grade. And that's what factors into going to those choice high schools. And so parents and students, please be mindful of those grades. And just like everyone said, practice and save and take every opportunity. And I think what has been so wonderful about the last year or so is that we've had all these streaming services to come online, and a lot of the smaller ones for not that much and some just free. My apologies. And so you can access great films and great theater and great music in your home, in your pajamas, and have that discussion as a family. And so when we only have your students for 40 minutes to 60 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week, and for only so many days a year, you have them every day. And you have them in the summers, you have them on the weekends, and so you can continue those discussions when we're not with them. Something that I wanted to pose to all of you tonight before we wrap up and everything, to kind of get a big picture about STEAM, about everything going on in the world. I have been really inspired with coronavirus and so many things that have broken our hearts in almost the last year. with so many things in the arts that have been able to heal. And I keep looking at the Enlightenment period that came about after the plague. And I've seen so many great things come about, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube or music that students are sharing with us or things they are creating. I loved the Hold Still campaign in the UK and different little things that people are doing. Broadway actors and actresses are coming out and doing amazing things. What are some things that you hope for to come from your fields? Maybe a new Enlightenment period, a new period that our students can be those to create the new period of great curiosity, if you will. What do you think education will do?
For me, I hope to see my students essentially become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and taking this idea of, especially with our STEM Academy students, because they are so brilliant. I mean, they're all so smart and right up there at the top. And there can be so much pressure to be perfect at everything when that's not the reality. Students have their gifts and their strengths and then their weaknesses. And so what I would really love to see is that students and their parents at home are accepting this idea of failure, because failure does not necessarily mean that your student is doomed. It does not mean that your student is absolutely just terrible at all of this. What failure means is that your student has been willing to step outside of their comfort zone and try something new. And sure, they may not have succeeded the first, second, or third time, but it's what they do with that and how they learn from it to progress forward that's going to take them into successful careers in the future. They need to be able to fail at something and learn how to grow from it. So that being comfortable, being uncomfortable is what I really want to see them be able to do.
Ms. Young, are you sure that you have not been at the STEM Academy forever? Because I remember there were several years ago, there were several of us that had this conversation. We should call them hallway conversations. And on one of my windows that I often use as boards, I had a huge hashtag. And several of us after hallway conversation had it, and it said fail up. And that was a mantra, like just a mantra that we just kept repeating, I think through the whole school year, was fail up, that you must fail in order to move up. Right. So I love that you have.
And it feels like I've been here forever already, and it's such a home. So, I mean, maybe I was at some point in someone else's mind or something. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that's something I tell my students a lot, and this applies to really to any professional in any field, but the professional has failed more times than you've even attempted something, and that's something we have to keep in mind. So I really like that, and that's good. Something I kind of preach all the time in band. You have to fail. You have to get out of your comfort zone, or you're not learning. And we are definitely outside of our comfort zones right now, so it's great.
For sure, for sure.
So this whole COVID craziness, as it's been deemed in my house, has been really hard on the theatrical world, but there are so many cool things that are coming out of it. Y'all, there was a TikTok musical. Somebody put out on TikTok, let's write a musical about Ratatouille, the Pixar film, and a whole bunch of people from all over the world wrote a musical all together. And before we were all shut down and locked away in our little cubes and boxes, that never would have happened. So we're getting the first crowdsourced material. We're getting all of these amazing points of view that until now haven't had a place for their voice to pop through. We are having our students have opportunities to write and create and build and make and just rejuvenate themselves and the world around them. We've got kids even still during lockdown. Black Box Productions had to move to all digital shows, and we took a show to Georgia Theater Conference and we won. We have a student who actually I think is in this call right now, who is a published author now, or will be, because they wrote an amazing monologue about being who they are, and they were chosen out of nationally hundreds of people who wrote monologues just to be like, this is my truth and I'm living it, and it's amazing.
Paul, Miss Flo, congratulations.
Woot.
Thank you.
But what I want our kids to know is the world isn't over. Nothing is over. It feels soul crushing, especially that we're still here almost a year later, but it's not over until you say it's over. So if you want Savannah Arts, if you want to write a show, if you want to make art, if you want to make music, that's on you, and you got to take ownership of it.
Y'all, it's fine. Miss Glass cries all the time. It's good.
It's only because we care so much about our kids, and it's hard because you can't care more than they do about their goals and their dreams. And so as much as a parent or as much as a teacher wants them to, do something, it's ultimately up to them, and you want to see them explore that potential. So it's always a little, sensitive.
I love hearing the STEM teachers so often talk about their children or their babies or their kiddos, and my nerds or this, like there's so many different words that they use, and then you realize they're not talking about biological children, they're not talking about pets, they're talking about their students. And it may be current students, it may be students from 5 years ago, but the relationship that STEM Academy teachers have with their students is very unique. And I think that is something that is definitely something that I wish all teachers could package and teach and send out. But it's something that I'm so proud to be a part of as well. Y'all do a great job. I'm proud to be a tiny little part of that. I don't know how to ask any more questions after that, except maybe one final piece of advice to students, to parents, to anyone even thinking about going into the arts, not even for high school, but even like us who have turned their passion into a paycheck. What advice would you have for them?
Practice your instrument. I will never not say that.
Be willing to try new things.
Learn to love the word no.
Be persistent and take advantage of every single opportunity.
Don't let them tell you that girls can't do it.
Yes, queen.
There's a Georgia Tech recruiter I'm still looking at.
I feel outnumbered here.
We love you too, Graham. Don't worry.
Guys, I want to thank you for a wonderful night. For all of our guests, for students, for parents, for those who are thinking about being a student, for those of you who are thinking about being a STEM Academy parent, thank you for joining us tonight. To my colleagues, I cannot thank you enough for allowing me to join you day in and day out, to pester you with my questions, and to allow me to be part of your creativity and your passion. It is an absolute joy to be part of your team. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that this will be up on our filmatstem YouTube channel within 24 hours. And you can always reach out to us via the STEM website at stem.seccpss.com on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's it from us. Good night from the STEM Academy.
Thank you, teachers.